Robert Spencer here for Jihad Watch, and I'm very happy to be here this morning with Geert Wilders, the Dutch parliamentarian and producer of the celebrated film Fitna, which depicts various verses of the Quran and Muslims acting violently upon it. Fitna, of course, has become the center of an international effort led by the Organization of the Islamic Conference to outlaw criticism of Islam. And so the first thing I'd like to ask you is, what were your intentions in creating this film? Did you want to insult Muslims and hurt their feelings?
Yes. No, Robert, my aim was certainly not to provoke Muslims or to get an international stir or problems or whatsoever. I remember very well last year, first I started by writing an article in one of the major Dutch newspapers about the threat of the Islamization of our culture and what I thought that the Quran represented. Then afterwards I initiated a debate with the Dutch Prime Minister about the same issue. And I thought, well, not everybody is looking at the C-SPAN in the Netherlands, at all the parliamentary debates. And not everybody is reading the newspaper, so how do I get my message more clear about what I see that the threat contains and what the Quran really stands for? And so it was not made as a provocation or whatever. It was made by a politician who, of course, I'm not a filmmaker, but still I found the obligation, well, to educate the people in the Netherlands and maybe even abroad about what the Quran really stands for. And in order to achieve that, I made a choice not to use any actors, because then anybody could say, well, look, this guy is playing with the facts. So I used, with the help of some people who know even more about the Quran than I do, I chose certain verses from certain surahs, and I used real images to combine with those verses.
Excellent. Yes, I noted myself that the film merely shows Quran verses and then Muslims, in some cases, actually quoting the same verses in order to incite people to violence. And I thought that it was extremely ironic, in light of that, that anyone would think that the film itself was hateful or violent, except insofar as it depicts Muslims being hateful and violent on the basis of these Quran verses. And I wondered if you thought that there was any... What has your reaction been to the reaction to the film when people say that it is hateful and violent and trying to incite people against Muslims?
Well, I fully subscribe to what you said, Robert. I mean, if there would be any hatefulness or blasphemy or whatsoever as part of my short film Fitna, then it's the responsibility of the people acting in it. And the people acting in it, in fact, are Muslims doing the most terrible things. So it was very strange to see that a lot of countries, from Saudi Arabia to Iran, from Jordan to Lebanon, they all complained in the most terrible way. And they said, well, this is blasphemic and he's insulting our Islam. And Al-Qaeda said they made the most terrible threats to me personally, but also to the Dutch troops in Afghanistan. Whereas more or less they made fitna. They are fitna. They made it. I mean, they are my actors. So if anybody is to blame for this, it's them. It's not me.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. What do you think are the chances, however, on the basis of this claim that Muslims are being insulted by this film, that the European Union will act to restrict the possibility of such films being made in the future?
Well, I think this is a real example of the démitude of the West, of the European Union, not only the European Union, but the United Nations. If possible, that's only worse. It's even worse. I think if we would abolish the United Nations or put General Assembly in Mecca somewhere, it would not really change so much as it is today. So it's very sad that when it comes to, we are not talking about Geert Wilders or Fitna. We are talking about the freedom of speech for everybody. I mean, this is at stake here. I'm totally unimportant when it comes to the whole picture of freedom of speech. And this is the first, not even the first, it's the second or the third step that politicians who are not that brave to stand up and say, come on, whatever criticism you can have, if somebody, we are democracies, if somebody is acting within the boundaries of our laws, within the rule of law, nobody, no country, no Arab country, no United Nations, no European Union can stop exercising their freedom of speech. And they are doing that now. So it's pure dimitude. I remember very well when the Dutch government, the Dutch foreign minister, went to the Middle East. He went to Damascus. He saw his colleague, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Syria, and he said, well, sirs, there will be, in a few months, there will be a movie called Fitna, and it's totally, we are totally objecting the content of that movie. Whereas he didn't even see 1 second, he didn't know anything about the content of Fitna. And this is even worse than dimitude. This is going on their knees, giving in, giving up. This is appeasement policy. It's like a lot of Chamberlains, but then in the beginning of the 21st century.
If the European Union does pass some freedom of speech restrictions, what do you think will be the reaction in Europe? Will there be a popular protest against this, or have things progressed to the point where if such a measure does become law, that there would be general acquiescence?
Well, I think it's very hard. I think that if the public really knows what is happening, they will not like it, and there will be a popular reaction. However, as so often when it comes to UN resolutions or European guidelines, people don't know, and they find out when it's too late. And this process, of course, has not started today. You see in every aspect of our life that the way we give in to the Islamization of our societies, whether it's in halal food or whether it is in not talking about educating our children in some schools about the Holocaust because we could offend Muslims, when it is that, as last week, people are almost stabbed to death in the street of Brussels because they were drinking water during the Ramadan and Muslims are offended. I mean, this is one of the many steps that proves the Islamization and deterioration of what I call our dominant Christian Judeo culture that should be there, that we should be proud of and fighting for. And so I think there could be a reaction to answer your questions. However, if you look at the political context in Europe today, and it's not only the political elite, it's also 90% of the mass media, which is very leftish and very liberal. If you today in Europe, this is how far unfortunately we are gone already, if you today criticize it and you say, well, this is because of people from Muslim countries complained, or you are giving in, or you're playing a dhimmi, then you are most often labeled as a racist or a xenophobe, even when you are not. So it's not only like here in the United States that people, Muslim organizations are suing people. No, it's a kind of self-censorship, because in a way, if you say anything critical about what you are just talking about, then you are immediately a racist, and people don't want to be called and don't want to be seen as a racist. So this makes it very difficult for a real strong popular reaction to come out.